Well, welcome everybody to this evening's satsang honoring the mahasamadhi of our Param Guru, Paramahansa, or Swami Sri Yukteswar. As many of you know, I've been gone for a little while, having taken care of some family business back in the United States, but I was able to return yesterday, and I got back yesterday and be here today. And I guess you might say it's right in between arriving back between Masters the 7th and here the 9th for Sri Yukteswar, his Mahasamadhi, this auspicious time. I'd like to begin by telling a little story that Swami used to say. He would tell a certain story over and over again, and I've told this story to some of you, but I've always found it a little bit amusing to me. This is that Swami would tell the story about two men riding on a train in England, and it's probably Scotland or England. And the two men in the train were looking out the window of the train on the hills on the side of the was passing by. And on the hills there were sheep on the hills. And it was that time of year, probably springtime, when they shear the sheep. They take the wool off the sheep. And it had been obvious that the sheep had been just recently sheared. And so one the Englishman says to the other, he says, "Oh, look at the sheep. They've just been recently sheared." And then the other Englishman says, "Well, on this side at least." In other words, maybe if we saw the other side of the sheep, they wouldn't have been sheared. But on this side that we can see, yes, on this side at least. And Swami would tell that story because he says that's how some people are. They tend to be, they won't take anything, they might say they go to extremes to be rational and to not make assumptions, to make nothing is assumed. Now, I say this story, I took it a little bit, say it was amusing to me, is because when Swami would tell this story, and he said it quite often, he told it quite often, especially in the early years, he would tell that story, and when he would look at me, it was, I think he'd tell a story, and then he was aiming right at me, because, well, if I'm a little bit, I don't assume too much, usually you got to prove it to me. If I don't take it just necessarily because I read it in a book or I saw it on the internet, Somebody says, "Oh yeah, I read it in the newspaper, I saw it on the internet. It's a true story." Yeah, right. And then, so I don't take things without I want proof of something. I want a little bit more than that. But of course, Swami probably perceived that I tend to take that a little bit too far. And if you do take it too far, how can you proceed even to the next page of the autobiography of a yogi? Because if you read the autobiography of a yogi, which I came to and read the autobiography many years ago, and my first reaction was to put it back on the shelf and walk away from it, which I did. But I came back, and one of the reasons I came back to it is the subject of this evening's talk, is Swami Sri Yukteswar. He was you might say, that element or that personality of which there are many in the autobiography, but very quickly, and right at the very beginning actually, Master talks about how his footsteps were led to the feet, or to the feet of a Christ-like saint. And then he begins immediately on that first page 1, going into page 2, talking about the life of that Christ-like saint and the great blessing that he had to be able to find himself at his feet, and pulled me in. And of course I had read, as I was perusing this in the bookstore, I had read the intro or the preface or the Evans Wentz writes that first page there. And I had read what Evans Wentz's book on the Tibetan Book of the Dead translation, and I think another one. But anyway, so he had some credibility in my mind, And so I was pulled into it, and Swami Sri Yukteswar was that personality in that soul within the autobiography that gave it gravitas, credibility in a lot of ways. Now, I felt Master's presence there because obviously the sincerity was there, but it was a very different element, you see, the element of heart and an element of sincerity that was there. But yet, I wanted to see the other side of the sheep, you see, and then I wanted to see, that really, this really makes sense. But yet, it was that personality of, or that aura of Swami Sri Yukteswar that drew me into the book. And I just felt that here was a man of deep integrity, wisdom obviously, but deep integrity, and also a person with his feet firmly planted on the ground. This was somebody who I could believe in and trust. And the rest of it, I trusted. That's not to say I didn't trust what Master was saying, but it appealed to a different side, you see. Master appeals to the heart, but Swami Sri Yukteswar appeals more to the intellect and to the mind, to the rational side. And my temperament being that way, it drew me in there, and I could accept this book. Well, I needed to when you get to be drawn into the book, because as you read into that book, you come toward the latter part of the book where you come to that chapter, the resurrection of Swami Sri Yukteswar, which I read yesterday, actually, or maybe it was early this morning. About 3 o'clock in the morning, actually. From jet lag, I got up early. And I read that chapter again. And I remember reading that chapter back in 1968 when I first read it. I was going, this is, I don't know if I believe any of this exactly, but I believe Master, by that time, he had drawn me in. But the expansiveness of what the potential of this world is. The average person in this world today has a very limited understanding, a very limited universe. And we realize that beyond this universe, there's these other universes, this astral worlds, these causal worlds. Hiranyaloka, as he's been speaking of. And the potential of that was awe-inspiring to me. Now, if I had read that in chapter 2 or 3 in the book, I might have put it back on the shelf. But by that time, I had been drawn in, and I could not say I understood much of it at all that first time reading. But I saw the potential that this world is much more vast. This universe is way beyond my limited understanding. And I'd like to read the conclusion of that chapter. And in a sense, it resonated something for me. And it's after he has spoken about the potential that lies before each one of us of someday coming to realize these truths. He says, I leave you now, beloved one. That's Sri Yukteswar speaking to Master. At these words, I felt Master melting away within my encircling arms. My child, his voice rang out, vibrating into my very soul firmament. Whenever you enter the door of Nirvikalpa Samadhi and call on me, I shall come to you in flesh and blood, even as today. With this celestial promise, Sri Yukteswar vanished from my sight. A cloud voice repeated in musical thunder, tell all, whoever knows by Nirvikalpa realization, that your earth is a dream of God, can come to the finer dream-created planet of Hiranyaloka, and there find me, resurrected in a body exactly like my earthly one. Yogananda, tell all. And just reading that early this morning reminded me of, you might say, the essence of what Swami Sri Yukteswar appealed to me. He said, you don't need to believe any of this, is how I interpreted this. Whether you believe it or not, it doesn't make a difference as to its reality or not. But yet, the potential is up to you. The door is open for you to realize this truth. Now, my doubts were such that, well, I'm going to take this on faith, but faith is only going to take me so far, ultimately, and take each of us so far. We have to ultimately realize that which we have faith in for our very own self. And what he was saying is he was telling us that we have that ability, that Sri Yukteswar, although he passed from this lifetime, went beyond this body, he was realizable once again by any one of us. Pass through that doorway of Nirvikalpa and you will find me, and you will see me once again in that astral world as I am now manifested to you. So he's put out a challenge, and I took it personally. I remember reading that and thinking, yes, I want to do that. Now, I didn't know what I was saying yes to. Yes, and I thought maybe in a year or two of Kriya practice, I'll have it, and I'm going to go there and see. And of course, we realize it's a little bit more than that. But nevertheless, the challenge is still there. It's for us. We have an ability to experience these things. And this is what I was very unattracted to religion as a youth, because it was assertions with no real ability to back it up or do anything to find out if this was true or not. And at least that's how it appeared to me. It's not a true perception, actually, but I perceived it that way at that time. And here was somebody saying, you can realize this for yourself. And that is what takes us to the next question. Well, how am I going to do that? Well, we've given you the tools. Babaji has come to give us the tools. He came to Lahiri Mahashaya to give us the tools of Kriya. These have been passed down to us. And Swami Sri Yukteswar, Master once, when skipping, I'll come back to that. But the Master once, when he went back in 1936, 35, 36, Sri Yukteswar confronted him. He said, because he had heard that perhaps Master was changing these teachings a little bit. And Yogananda, Master said to him, he says, no, he says, sir, you were like the goldsmith who refines the pure gold. I'm the jeweler. I take that gold and mold it for people to wear. And Sri Yukteswar liked that answer. And he says, yes, that's it. But Sri Yukteswar also was a bit of a jeweler also, because he took that pure gold from Babaji and Lady Mahashaya that came down, and he presented, or you might say, it's like the transmission in an automobile. You have the engine and you have the wheels, but you have to have something between those two in order to be able to control that power of the engine, in order to be able to translate it into movement of the wheels, and that's the transmission. And Sri Yukteswar was like that transmission. He took that power of Babaji and his Guru Lahiri Mahashaya, and he framed it in a way, or brought it into the world of modern society, which is a world of science. We're science-based. We're not just taking things on faith. I want proof. And there are more people like me today than perhaps there were in the past. They want proof. They want to see the other side of the sheep. Is it really sure? Now, of course, I take that too far, but yet I don't take something as an assumption. The famous last words when somebody messes up, I assumed, and then whatever it was they assumed. Of course they didn't. They assumed something. They didn't check for themselves. So great mistakes, you find the person say, why'd you do that? Well, I assumed it, yes. They start the sentence that way. I don't want to be that way. I want to know myself. And I think I represent, to some degree in that attitude, 20th century, 21st century mankind approaches religion in that way. The old religion of just believing what's been handed down to us through Scripture needs more to it. And this is what the masters have brought. These are the techniques. You can know the truth of these Scriptures if you practice. That door is open to you, and there's no intermediary that is necessary. Now, of course, the Guru acts as that intermediary, because yes, there is actually, but there's no, that we can, for our very selves, learn and experience those truths that have been handed down to us from ancient times, if we apply ourselves. And this is as how I took the message of Swami Sri Yukteswar, his vibration of authenticity, giving authenticity to the truths that ultimately Master then took. Now, Master, of course, being the jeweler, he was able to frame these in a way, and his personality was one I didn't need. He could say something and I didn't need that side of it, because I took it on the heart. That was the lesson I had to learn. And I think that was the lesson that Swami was trying to impress upon me. Don't be in your head quite so much. You have to take something on faith and develop that. But he also, Swami used to say, faith is not the same as belief. Faith is based on experience. And so, but yet have enough, your experience will give you faith. Your belief and your hopes and your wishes lead you to the practices that we share in our tradition. But through that practice, you yourself, through your own inner awakening of the light within you, will awaken that light, so that that experience will guide your faith, and that will give you faith. It'll be based on something true. And that's what Sri Yukteswar, I felt that presence, and said, here is somebody who is an embodiment of the truth. And of course, what do we call him? He's Gyan Avatar. He was an incarnation of that divine wisdom. And whenever I meditate and I look at the altar, each one of them vibrates in a certain way. And for Sri Yukteswar, he gives me a sense of spine straightening rigor. Sometimes we need that. I can imagine. Come on, wake up. Shape up. Don't be like that. And yes, okay. And the spine straightens when I meditate. Put myself in that aura of Swami Sri Yukteswar, and with that, then of course we draw in and we balance it with the vibration of all of our masters. But that element is very important for us, is to have a certain amount of rigor in what we're doing. You don't associate Swami Sri Yukteswar with an airy-fairy type of approach. And he was disciplined. And in that sense, I appreciated that. Somebody to, you might say, give me inwardly a sense of discipline. And I've taken Sri Yukteswar and felt that really, as a God-realized soul, as God-realized Guru, Guru is God. And in a sense, I think Swami Sri Yukteswar, I feel he's my higher self talking to me. He's an embodiment of my own inner higher self, that divine potential. And I think for each of us, of course, all the gurus are that divine potential. They're our own inner self. That's ultimately what we're trying to realize. Because what is the name of our path? Path of self-realization. And that is embodied by each of the gurus and that own particular facet of the diamond that they represent. And so keep that in mind as we meditate. Just look into his eyes in the picture on the altar. Try to draw that. And what does he mean for you? I share what he may mean for me, but he may mean something very different for you. What is it? What do you feel when you draw that in? It's an aspect of your own higher self that's talking to you, holding out a potential for you. And in my case, he's the potential to which I aspire to, one aspect of that, as is each of the masters. And so let's hold Swami Sri Yukteswar at this, in particular in today, as we're meditating, and as we meditate perhaps in the next days ahead, look into those eyes and draw that presence into your meditation. Now, Aditya ji, I'm sorry I spoke a little long. See, I was supposed to give him time too, but I don't. But anyway, I've been away, and I've been, you lose track of time. So anyway, thank you very much. And happy Swami Sri Yukteswar Mahasamadhi Day. Om Guru.
I think we would have loved to hear much more. Thank you for the wonderful reminder. So happy Mahasamadhi Day to all of you, friends. I'll start with a small poem that Master composed for his Guru. Many of you might know it. It's worth repeating, especially on this day. It's called My Guru. And then I'd like to share a little bit about Sri Yukteswar ji's approach as he trained Master for a life of meditation, but also work. And of course, as Master then met Swamiji, he said, you will have a lot of work, of course, meditation. And we find ourselves, actually, as you could say, our path is one of service and meditation, or call it meditation and service. So I'll talk a little bit about that attitude and how Sri Yukteswar ji brought it to us. So this is called My Guru by Master. Thou light of my life, thou camest to spread wisdom's glow over the path of my soul. Centuries of darkness dissolved before the shafts of thy luminous help. As a naughty baby, I cried for my mother divine, and she came to me as my Guru, Swami Sri Yukteswar. At that meeting, O my Guru, a spark flew from thee, and the faggots of my God craving, gathered through incarnations, smoldered and blazed into bliss. All my questions have been answered with thy flaming golden touch. Eternal, ever-present satisfaction has come to me through thy glory. My Guru, thou voice of God, I found thee in response to my soul cries. Slumbers of sorrow are gone, and I am awake in bliss. If all the gods are displeased, yet thou art pleased, I am safe in thy fortress, in the fortress of thy pleasure. And if all the gods are protect me behind the parapets of their blessings, yet I receive not thy benedictions. I am an orphan left to pine spiritually in the ruins of thy displeasure. O Guru, thou didst bring me out of the bottomless pit of darkness into the paradise of peace. Our souls met after years of waiting. They trembled with an omnipresent thrill. We met here because we had met before. Together we will fly to his shores, where we will smash our planes of finitude forever and vanish into infinite life. I bow to thee as the voice, spoken voice of silent God. I bow to thee as the divine door which leads to the temple of salvation. I bow to thee, to thy master Lahari Mahashaya, harbinger of yoga in Banaras. And I lay the flowers of my devotion at the feet of Babaji, our Supreme Master. That so beautifully, I especially love that line, thou the spoken voice of silent God. That so many times Master said that, how do we know that God loves us? We come on the spiritual path, find a guru. Master would say we have to continue joyfully, happily till the end of our life. And so many times, even then, doubts come to us. I'm remembering a letter Padre Pio wrote, the great Italian saint, wrote to a disciple. And the disciple was complaining how she just cannot feel the presence of God. God has abandoned her. Padre Pio was in home confinement at that time, and she said, "This is it. I think I'm not worthy of anything." And his letter was very beautiful. He said, "Oh, daughter, if you could only see how close Christ is to you," he said, "you would believe me." He said, "He is closer to you than ever before." That it happens to us that we think, God has forgotten me. But Master would say the fact that he gave you a guru is an expression that God is interested and he wants your questions answered. And as Jayaji was saying, I think Master drew Sri Yukteswar ji because Master said when he was young, he said, I was absent-minded, and he outlined a few qualities, and I think he needed Sri Yukteswar ji to straighten him up. And also, of course, that moment when Master got Samadhi, it's enshrined in these pages. The chapter is Experience in Cosmic Consciousness. I think most of us know. If you haven't, today might be a good time to read that chapter again. And basically, Sri Yukteswar ji is calling Master. And Master says, when he hears his voice, he says, Sir, I am meditating. And Sri Yukteswar again said, Mukunda, come here. He said, I am meditating, sir. And my Master writes that he said, I was thinking, he knows I'm trying to meditate. Why is he calling me at this moment? And this happened a third time. And Sri Yukteswar ji said to his beloved disciple, I know how you are meditating. With your mind like leaves, I think, in a storm. And he said, come here. And Master said, come. He said, I was completely exposed. And what was left, he got up and he walked to Sri Yukteswar ji. And remember, he had returned from a whole year of exile also. Before that, after newly joining, he said, this is not it. I have to find God in the Himalayas. And Swamiji said that Master told the disciples, that he said, actually, I was gone for a whole year to different places seeking God, till God brought him back to Sri Yukteswar ji. And so this moment comes. And of course, as the story went, Sri Yukteswar ji touched him on the heart and he went into Samadhi. And then Master explains the deep experience. And when he comes back, I want to read those lines. He said, suddenly the breath returned to my lungs. With a disappointment almost unbearable, I realized that my infinite immensity was lost. Once more I was limited to the humiliating cage of a body, not easily accommodative to the spirit. Like a prodigal child, I had run away from my macrocosmic home and imprisoned myself in a narrow microcosm. My guru was standing motionless before me. I started to drop at his holy feet in gratitude for the experience in cosmic consciousness which I had long passionately sought. He held me upright and spoke calmly, unpretentiously. You must not get overdrunk with ecstasy. Much work yet remains for you in the world. Come, let us sweep the balcony floor, and then we shall walk by the Ganges. Master writes, I fetched a broom. Master, I knew, was teaching me the secret of balanced living. The soul must stretch over the cosmogonic abysses while the body performs its daily duties. And it is quite reassurance on one level that Samadhi can come on our most restless day of meditation. So don't give up on those sadhanas when nothing is working out. Like they say, maybe you are going through the choppy waters and soon you'll be standing on firm ground. But there's a statement Master made, I think we all must have heard it. He said, meditation will help you in a life of daily sadhana, a life of, like that devotee who was lost. And it happens to the best of disciples. There was a monk, no, who was with Master, and he said, I don't think I can find God, sir. Think when you're caught, you're really caught. Master is sitting in front of you. Better to jump at his feet and say, give me God. But when you're caught, you don't see what you have. And he said, I don't think so. And that devotee was saying, Father, I don't feel Christ's presence. And Padre Pio said, oh no, be calm. Yogas chitta vritti nirodha, get into some sadhana, and then you will see you have that inside you, and share. Also, seva, Swami says, ennobles us. And here's another component. I think we can see that easily in Swamiji and Master. To the degree we are blessed inside and is God's will in meditation, to that degree one wants to serve not just one person, but everybody in a unique way. Because God has no formula, one formula for everybody. He wants to approach somebody through arts, through some women empowerment, through another project, so many ways. And Swamiji embodied that spirit. His name, Kriyananda, that he would do his kriyas and then he would astonish us. I'm still reading his books for the first time, many of his books, and I'm like, how did he have such attunement, depth, clarity, compassion? But that is coming because he went inside. So meditation can help our service, and service, which makes us grounded, as Jayaji was saying, it teaches us, okay, what do people really need, can bring more depth and blessings. Because how do you get your meditation deep? How did Master get into samadhi? When his Guru blessed him. So for us, to attunement with the Guru and seva and sadhana, when I think of Sri Yukteswar ji, I sit up out of bed, I start saying yes to projects which earlier I was unwilling to do. You say, okay, sooner or later when I go away, he's going to be like, well, let's rewind a few things. I said, no, at least I tried, sir. So that's a benefit, So anyway, thank you so much, friends.
Dare to be different, dare to be free, dare to roam far like wind on the sea, fly like a gull, soar high on the air, be strong in your courage when others despair. Never in anger, never in haste, go without pride, be never abased. Freedom is yours if freedom you'll give, to all give it freely, in freedom you live. Mountains that stand up tall to the sky, tell us no dreaming is ever too high. Dare to climb boldly, brave that high peak, you'll never know failure if bravely you seek. Dare to be different, dare to be free, dare to roam far like wind on the sea, fly like a gull, soar high on the air, be strong in your courage when others despair. Be strong in your courage when others despair.
Walk like a man. How do you feel about walk like a man?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We'll walk together.
The man will start. We have in practice actually. Man first.
Walk like a man, even though you walk alone. Why court approval once the road is known? Let come who will, but if they all turn home, the goal still awaits you.